Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharma swarupine avatara varisthaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. So this will be the last class of 2020-21, and we will be continuing these sessions, Thursday sessions, as well as the other sessions in our new year. So first of all, wish you all a very happy new year. Of course, we are 2 days away from that. One day is still there. So as you all know, we have also begun a session on the divine play of Sri Ma Sharda Devi, which is an additional class. Like the great master, I thought we should be uh, discussing and about the great life of Sri Ma Sharda Devi. So, just a minute. Yeah. So we were discussing the doctrine of Avatara, which was supported not only by the Vedas, but further strengthened by the Puranas. The Puranas gave the doctrine of Avatara a proper grounding. I mean, the worship of it began as the worship of the Guru. So in the Vedic ages, the Upanishadic ages, the role played by the Guru in molding the life of the disciple and in devotees in general, they were revered gurus in different tradition. We also know the Vedic rishis. They were gurus in their own right. We also trace our ancestry, especially the Hindus. They trace their ancestry to some rishi, which they call as Gotra. I belong to this particular Gotra. That means a lineage of gurus from whom we have descended. So, just as Swamiji used to say that in Europe, you people trace your ancestry to some baron or some robber baron or some great Kshatriya warrior. In India, we trace our ancestors to some great rishi who was the founder of the spiritual tradition to which one belong. Though they may not follow exactly the rules and the spiritual practices of that tradition, but it is a practice even today to trace your ancestry to a particular rishi who is supposed to be the guru of that particular tradition or that particular gotra, as it is known in Sanskrit. So, where this worship of the guru, the ancient guru from whom we have received spiritual knowledge in the form of a continuous lineage or some kind of tradition, the Guru Parampara as it is known, the succession of gurus, which is also known as Parampara, that ultimately developed into the concept of Avatara, which flourished in the Puranic age, which is much later than the Vedic age. In the Puranas, people who could not do tapasya, could not do spiritual practices as they could do in the Satya Yuga of the Vedas or the old and ancient ages, people used to do a lot of spiritual practices. But in this Puranic age, they found in this Kali Yuga especially, it was very difficult to practice spiritual disciplines as they used to do. Go retire into the forests and do all these spiritual practices which were essential to have a control of the mind and realize the divine within. So that intuitive experience which people got was gained under the guidance of a guru. It was a very slow process, no doubt, in even in the Vedic age, and it took years and years of training under the guru to uh, develop some kind of mastery in the meditation techniques of that particular parampara. But later on, in the Puranic age, the need was felt of a supreme guru or a guru who was of the category of an avatara. Sri Krishna is often referred to as Guru Maharaj. That means he is the supreme guru. And in the Ramakrishna order, it is a tradition that he is the guru of all the gurus who take the tradition forward. He is the Adi Guru. Just as Shiva is known as Adi Guru in Shaivism. And in different traditions, they trace the idea of Guru, or they extend the roots of this idea extend deep into the Vedic age. It is from the Vedic age this idea of Guru Parampara, and later it was the concept of Avatara. It took a definite shape, and this Avatara solved a problem for a large number of people. So it was very easy to worship and get emotionally attached or mentally worship this Avatara, and he would do whatever was necessary. These Avatara Purushas, these great people, they don't, even after their passing away, the impact that they had when they were alive, it continues. So even today, even to this day, the impact of these avatars or those who were close, like today we are celebrating the birthday, or according to the tithi, of Srimad Swami Shivanandaji Maharaj, who was the second Sangha Guru of our order. So he has initiated a lot of people, some of whom again have become gurus in the Ramakrishna tradition. So we trace our Guru Parampara to Thakur, then after him Swami Vivekananda and all the other direct disciples who were gurus in their own right. And then Holy Mother, of course, is there. Then a tradition has come down through her disciples, and her disciples have initiated other people who have now become gurus. So this tradition is there not only in the Ramakrishna order, but in most of the paramparas, like Shankaracharya's parampara. There are so many other traditions where they trace their ancestry to somebody, just as we trace our ancestry to Sri Ramakrishna's Guru Parampara. So also there were innumerable gurus in the Vedic ages. Some of them were rishis, some of them were avatars. Like some people may even trace their ancestry to Sri Krishna. The Yadavas, they proudly say that we belong to Sri Krishna's lineage, though they may not imbibe all the spiritual traditions and the spirituality of Sri Krishna, but at least they say that we belong to this particular lineage. So, endowed with love and devotion, many people, common people who did not have the capacity to perform tapasya or spiritual practices and live with a guru, if they could not do it, they worship this Saguna Brahman, which is also known as Ishvara. Nirguna Brahman is the Avyakta, or who is also known as Brahman, or the Supreme Lord, the formless Lord, or pure consciousness, which is the ultimate goal of spiritual life. But there is the manifest aspect of Brahman, who is known as God with attributes, or Saguna Brahman. So they firmly reached a conclusion that God can incarnate. His attributes, his actions, his nature, these can be studied, this can be meditated upon, and you will get the same benefit as if you are meditating what you would get if you normally meditate, like the Upanishads say, on the Supreme Satchidananda. Since it is difficult to meditate on abstract concepts like these and to realize them in one's own heart, the spiritual heart, it becomes imperative to worship, for many people, for a majority of the people, to worship God when he comes as incarnation, Whenever there is a decay in dharma, when a large number of people forget spiritual truths and attracted to the gross world, incarnation has to come. The need for incarnation is felt when collectively a large number of individuals forget the spiritual truths and don't practice spirituality. So the Lord comes to show the way. That is the belief in the Purana. So the concept of avatara spread when especially in the Puranic age. So in this age, you will find a lot of avatars were manifest. It's not that in this age the avatars were there even before, but they were not recognized because they lived as great rishis. Some of the great rishis, they had this capacity to impart spirituality to a large number of chain of disciples. But these avatars, now and then, they came, and whatever they did was considered as an eternal play of Saguna Brahman. It is a play for avatara. So that's why we have the class which we take now has been named as Sri Ramakrishna and his divine play, or the great master who enacted this divine play, Leela Prasanga. So also, if you see the divine life of Holy Mother Sri Ma Sharda Devi, she also enacted her own play in her own field, which Sri Ramakrishna had specified. So she came with a joint mission with, as it were, as an avatara, as a supporter to the avatara, or as a sahadharmini, one who follows the spiritual concert of the avatara. The spiritual concerts normally in the past, in all the previous incarnations, they had a secondary role to play. Whereas it is in this incarnation, Sri Ramakrishna decided, the present avatar whom we consider as an avatar, he decided that Holy Mother would have had to play a larger role and a much longer role even after his passing away. So the play did not end with Sri Ramakrishna's divine play. Of course, that play is going on even now. Through him, through his disciples, people even today, take it for granted, not alone Sri Ramakrishna, but his disciples, who initiated a large number of disciples themselves, they appear in a strange way in the consciousness of modern people who are perhaps were not lucky enough to see them, to know about them. We may not have met Swami Shivananji, who was known as Mahapurush Maharaj, but a large number of people had met them. And the fact that they are eternally present, as Swami Shivananji in fact mentioned, that in this life, Sri Ramakrishna was gracious enough to make me a Nitya Mukta or a Ishwar Koti. Ishwar Koti is another word which is used to depict or to describe the eternal companions of the Lord. There is a beautiful book, Eternal Companion, which deals with the life and message of Swami Brahmananda, who was one of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna called them as Ishwar Kotis. Swami Vivekananda was definitely one of them, but Swami Brahmananda, Swami Yogananda, Swami Niranjanananda, and Purna Chandra Ghosh, who was a householder, but still Sri Ramakrishna saw intuitively understood, or maybe knew that they were the divine Ishwar Kotis. And Mahapurush Maharaj, Swami Shivananji, once remarked that by his grace he has made me into an Ishwar Kotis. So in the divine play of Sri Ramakrishna, you will find many Ishwar Kotis. Apart from Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual consort, Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi, this divine play was possible only because of the Ishwar Kotis, who are the spiritual companions who came to fulfill a particular mission. Some of them were householders, like Master Mahashay. He may not have been an Ishwar Koti, but he had a role to play in the divine play. Without him, the gospel would not have been there. So also, Swami Shivananji and others who later on after Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda himself, though he started the Ramakrishna order under the instructions of Sri Ramakrishna himself, made Swami Brahmananda the first president. And he knew that his life was short, his job was done. He went all over the world, preached the message of universal message of Sri Ramakrishna or Vedanta all over the world, and started the order, made provisions for its running properly, and handed over the mantle, the spiritual mantle, to Swami Brahmananda, who guided the destiny, who played the role of a guru, Sangha Guru as he was known, and guided the destinies of a lot of disciples who later on initiated a lot of people. Swami Prabhavanandji in the West, he sent quite a few of them to the West. Then similarly, Holy Mother, on the other hand, though she was the guiding force even behind the Ramakrishna order. Though Swami Vivekananda started it, she was the Shakti behind. She was the Sangha Janani, as she is popularly referred to. So as a Sangha Janani, her role was to guide the spiritual destiny of the order, and many of the disciples whom she initiated became the Sangha Gurus. The later, now we had so many Sangha Gurus, the 15th, the 16th Sangha Guru is there now. So they are all part of the same tradition, Guru Parampara, which has been handed over from these incarnations and the spiritual concert, Holy Mother, who was in her own right an incarnation of the Divine Mother. So we can see that this idea of worshipping the Guru now in this age is being taken to a different level. We just don't worship, we worship the Adi Guru, the founder of the tradition. So these incarnations would incarnate in every age. That was the conclusion of the Puranas, and discover a new spiritual path. The truths are eternal, they don't change, but a suitable path to make suitable to the nature, the human nature of that age, and make God realization a bit easier than the previous ages. How? By showing a new path, discovering a new spiritual path. And that process will go on. That is why Swamiji says God's book is not closed. Many pages have been turned, new pages have been written, and they will continue to be written, these pages. New paths will be discovered, new incarnations will come. Of course, they won't come so easily. They come after a period of, say, 500 years, as Swamiji mentioned. Roughly, that is the period when some great prophet comes and shows a new path, new spiritual path based on the same eternal principles, and tries to make God realization easier for people who have peculiar problems which are peculiar to that age. There are specific problems. Now we are in an age of science and technology. There are so many issues. The problems of 500 years ago are not the same problems as we face. There were different problems in those days. Now medical science and many things have advanced. But there are other problems, the psychological problems. There are other issues. So the divine birth or the divine play of an incarnation is just, according to these Puranas, is to discover, not only discover a new spiritual path, but through a succession of disciples, impart it to whoever wants to follow that path. So the divine birth, when you study, say, of an incarnation, in this case it is Sri Ramakrishna, an avatara like this Ishvara, God, by nature he has to be, or he is supposed to be an eternally pure, illumined and free soul. So unlike a jiva who is entangled by his past karma, I was just discussing today morning that there are every individual somebody asked, what is the definition of spirituality? It's a very question. Naturally, why do we study all these biographies, the divine Leela? What is spirituality? This is a question which every modern youth or modern man will ask, because the very fact that spirituality is necessary for us uh, shows that one has to define what spirituality is, even before we can convince somebody that spirituality is necessary for us. So what is spirituality? So Vedanta studied nature. Prakriti has so many facets. It has a gross aspect. We see the gross universe around us. We see the subtle mental world, the conflicts, the mental problems. So they graded all these problems according to their subtlety. And we start with the Sthula Sharira, the gross body. It has its own problems. It can be solved. As Swami Vivekananda said, 1/3 of our problems, 33% of our problems. He told the Indians, especially the Indians who were physically weak as compared to the European nations. He said, 1/3 of your problems are physical. I know where the shoe pinches. That's why I'm telling you, I love you dearly. And he told his disciples, take care of the physical aspect also. One has to be spiritually strong. So there are physical problems. Then there are some problems. 1/3 of our problems are at the mental level. So we have this we can divide the human personality into three parts. One is the physical, the mental, and the causal. Causal means there are certain aspects of our personality which we cannot see, which we cannot perceive. They have not risen to the level of the mind. Only when it comes as thoughts, we discover them. And then we wonder, where were these problems? Why do they come to us and suddenly they appear? And they make us panicky. They make us feel that I was fine. Yesterday I was fine. Today, why these problems have come? So some of the 1/3 of our problems, you see, we have to carefully analyze why these things come to us. First, we have to rule out whether we have a physical problem. That is why it is known as Tapatraya. What is spirituality? Atyantika Dukkha Nivrutti and Parama Sukha Prapti. That is, everybody wants this. Whether he's a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, or belonging to any religion or any denomination, or even if he's an atheist, nobody wants suffering. So Dukkha Nivarana, or removal of sufferings of three kinds. Atyantika Dukkha Nivrutti. That is how Vedanta defines the goal of spiritual life. Why spirituality is necessary? Because it gives a solution to Atyantika Dukkha Nivrutti, which Dukkha are of three types. Tapatraya. Tapa means Dukkha, the difficulties that we face. 1/3, according to Swamiji, is physical. 1/3 is of the mind. We have to deal with all at different levels. And 1/3 is something which is far deeper. We do not understand. And for that, we have to just have faith in the incarnation and the spiritual practices which we have been given by the grace of the incarnation through a successive chain of disciples. And then the spiritual practices have come. We do not know its efficacy. Nobody except Sri Ramakrishna can tell you these japa and the sadhana and the meditation, the karma yoga, all the yogas, over a period of time, the spiritual practices which were found to be useful have been developed. And we need to understand how they impact us. It may not be very clear sometimes we have to start with some basic faith. And as we go on patiently, just as when you discover you have a physical ailment, you can't take a medicine and expect that ailment to go. It's not a good method also. There are drugs available, we take the medicine and you get cured immediately. But that is very rare. But most of the time, we go to the root of the physical problem. The good consultant will tell you what you should do, and you set right that physical problem. So also, in the field of the mind, we have some mental ailments which is common. Everybody has. It's not that only people who are psychologically disturbed they have. Every normal, even there's no such thing as a normal human being. Everybody, except maybe the incarnations and their Ishwar Kotis, because they have not come with any samskaras. We are born with a baggage of our own. So we have a causal body to deal with the remnants of all our past lives. So they keep coming, no matter how much we try to settle our mind, to make our mind free from all the problems, using all the spiritual techniques. Again and again, they will come. So patiently, just as we have to deal with our body, we have to deal with the mind, and we have to deal with the subtle body, which can be dealt only with these spiritual practices. The deeper the problem, the higher the spiritual solution will be. So most of our problems are unknown to us because they come from a causal level, and it can be dealt with some faith, some peace of mind. That is why Holy Mother, though it is out of context, I wanted to repeat this. Holy Mother said the easiest and the best way. You see, she was not a philosopher. She did not go on thinking like most of us. We think a lot. We try to analyze. We doubt everything. Sanshaya Rakshasa Nasha Mahastram. That is what is said about Sri Ramakrishna. He came to destroy doubts. These doubts are creating problems for us. It keeps on, we go round and round in circles. We cannot stop. So the solution that our all our rishis they proposed was meditation. What is meditation, or what is calming down of the mind? Why do we do it? What is its spiritual value? To hold on to one train of thought, say mantra or repetition of the mantra, it just calms down. It is such an important technique that you need to give the mind a rest. Thakur used to say Nirjan Vas. Nirjan is not just going to a lonely place. You have to quieten the mind. It refuses to be quiet. That is okay, but then we have to persist. A unruly dog, those who have pets, they know. So Sri Ramakrishna used to give this example. It keeps on disturbing you. So you have to cajole him, try to calm him down. Don't be restless, don't be restless, don't be restless. Finally, the dog is under control of its master. So also the mind. So Latu Maharaj used a wonderful technique, Swami Adbhutananda. He was a simple person, did not know any philosophy. He said, I just put a no entry sign on my mind. I just tell my mind, there is a no entry sign. Don't allow anybody to come and disturb you. That is what Nirjan Vas means. Solitude, living in solitude now and then. So meditation is a wonderful technique, and Holy Mother gave the final solution. She says the easiest and the best way to solve all the problems of life. Things, spiritual practices cannot be explained in a more simpler way than this. But problem is we doubt. We doubt the simple solutions. We think we need some complicated solutions to our problems. But she says it is not only the easiest way, but the easiest and the best way. When one woman disciple asked Holy Mother, I have so many issues and so many things. So she says, I'll tell you the easiest and the best way. If you have faith, listen to it and do it. And then tell me if it doesn't work. So the easiest and the best way to solve all the problems of life, Atyantika Dukkha Nivrutti, whether it is physical, mental, of course, for physical, there are other solutions. You can go to the doctor, get some treatment, at least temporarily you'll get some relief. Even for mental, you can go to a calm place and go to somebody who can calm down your mind. Satsang also helps. So these things are there. But what about the causal problems? How do you deal with it? So Mother comes with the easiest and the best solution to deal with the problems of life is to take the name of the master. In that case, because master was the disciples' Ishta, take the name of Sri Ramakrishna in silence. So this word silence is very important. She could have said, just take the name. But there are situations where we really need silence. We just really need to be alone. And that is so important that Sri Ramakrishna practically in the whole gospel, he will begin with Nirjan Vas. Then he will say Satsang. First Nirjan Vas, calm down the mind, then positive thoughts will enter. If the mind is agitated, no matter how much advice you get, how much good things you hear, it will be like pouring water on a rock. So first is, it is a technique which has been accepted not only by Hinduism, but Buddhism especially, and many other religions. Solitude has been a great healer. So you just go into your shell, go into solitude. That is what meditation is all about. That is what spirituality is all about. We have time for everything, but we don't have time for ourselves. Just go into solitude and repeat the name. Repetition of the name is to positively deal with the 1/3 problem which is there. If you just roughly divide it, it's not exactly 1/3. Some people may have more subtle problems, some people may have more causal problems depending on their karma. So Holy Mother says the easiest and the best. Because it is easy and because it is simple, it is also the best. We don't need complicated solutions. But if our minds are complicated, we will not be happy. We'll say, are we fools? We will not believe in all these things. We don't believe in japa. We don't believe in repeating the holy name. Neither do we believe in solitude. I will solve my problem in my own way. And they try many things that finally they have to come to Holy Mother's solution. So the Avatara comes to show us a way. And Sri Ramakrishna through his divine play also came to show a way. What he could not do alone, if you read the whole divine play, you will find there are so many Ishwar Kotis or companions whom he delegated certain responsibilities. He gave some responsibilities to Master Mashay, though he was himself struggling. He was under tremendous pressure from all around. There was no problem which was not there. He had physical problems, problems of many problems, mental problems which were worse because of all his relatives and in the family where he was living. And then he had, of course, some causal problems. Every jiva comes with a baggage. So he had to solve all the three and he was finding it almost impossible. But even such a person, Sri Ramakrishna chose and gave him, said, you will try to solve your problems. And that is why he started noting down what Sri Ramakrishna said. That was part of the divine play. Sri Ramakrishna knew he was born for this. And he was, poor fellow, was given problems just so that he will take interest. If you don't have problems, then you don't go after solutions. He would not have recorded the gospel. He would have just enjoyed the company of Sri Ramakrishna and gone away. But because it was a deep-rooted problem, and Sri Ramakrishna knew that in trying to solve his own problems, which he actually did by recording everything that Sri Ramakrishna spoke, about which we discuss in the gospel, he prepared those notes for himself. But you see, in the process, he helped the entire humanity who were in his situation. So this is what Avatara does. He delegates his responsibility, outsources it to some householder disciples, some unmarried disciples, some monastics. Of course, all of them became monastics later on, most of his unmarried young disciples. And some of them were married, like Mahapurush Maharaj. He was a widower, his wife had died. But he came to Sri Ramakrishna as a man who was once married and came at a slightly older age than the younger disciples. But through his grace, as Mahapurush Maharaj said, he converted me into a Ishwar Koti in this birth. So we have to believe these things. They may appear to be very matters of faith. Said, how do I get that faith? How do we know that he is an incarnation? There are so many other books, so many other people also claiming. But then you have to see the tradition, see the amount of dedication people who follow Sri Ramakrishna had, then just make a comparative study and see where you will get true spirituality. To find out a true source of spirituality is very difficult. First of all, as Shankaracharya said, to get a human birth is difficult. To get a Mahapurusha Sanshraya, to come in the orbit of a great soul, a great master, a great incarnation, is still more difficult. And to first desire to be free from all this trouble, Atyantika Dukkha Nivrutti and Parama Sukha Prapti, to reach that state where you will be eternally blissful, that desire first of all doesn't come. If it comes, then that first you don't get a human birth. Human birth is rare. After getting that, you don't get desire for moksha. And once that desire for moksha or spirituality comes, then you go here and there trying to find out where can I get to spirituality. So Mahapurusha Sanshraya, the connection with a great tradition, the connection with a great Guru Parampara, the connection with a great Avatara, who is the founder of that Guru Parampara, whether it is the Vedic age or Puranic age where avatars replace these rishis, the concept of avatara. Their life, if we study properly, shows us that they lived only for the good of humanity, to doing good to the beings. And being Ishvara, an incarnation of an Ishvara, Ishvara is always, incarnation is always of Ishvara. Brahman doesn't incarnate directly. He as the manifest Brahman, Saguna Brahman, incarnates as Ishvara, and they are from birth freed from the meshes of Maya. And he never forgets his previous incarnations, the previous births. That is what Sri Krishna said. I remember all my previous births. You may not remember because you are a jiva, is telling Arjuna, but I remember everything. I know what is good for you. So the question may be asked now, as Holy Mother always said, that without, Sri Ramakrishna always said that you have to get the grace of Mahamaya. In this case, Holy Mother, she never displeased her. Through her grace, you can solve everything. So we need the help of the spiritual concert of Sri Ramakrishna to be free from the meshes of Maya, to have free from this dukkha, atyantaka dukkha nivrutti. They can come in different proportions. Sometimes it may be physical, sometimes it may be mental, sometimes, and always it is causal, because it is from there the mental problems start. Then it gets converted into psychosomatic problems. So all these problems, no person, including the Ishwar Kotis, are free. But because they were born free, they just solve it as a divine play. For them, it is just a play. For us, it is really serious. If you say that my problems, if somebody comes and tells a person that he is suffering, and he said, oh, it is a divine play, it is not going to work that way. It is definitely not a divine play for us. That is why Holy Mother says, you go to repeat the name, go to this incarnation, for whom all these tapatrayas, all the sickness, all the diseases, everything if you see in their life is just a divine play. So you become part of it. Today or tomorrow, like Mahapurush Maharaj did, the jivas will become part of that divine play. We are already part, whether we know it or not. But our roles are secondary. We are not the main players. We are the fringe players. In a drama, there are some fringe players who just come for a few minutes. So we may be insignificant, but still, if we are lucky enough to become part of that divine play, then we will be redeemed. So the Puranas, they ask this question, or they reply a question which may come into somebody's mind. I agreed. Many people say, we agree with what you say, that our causal body, or the receptacle where our old memories are stored, the old memories which we don't remember. Everybody may be keen to remember, and it's not necessary also to remember, because what will you do by remembering all the previous births? So you say, I don't even have an unbroken memory of this birth, what I did when I was 1 year old, 2 year old. I don't have. Many things I forget, and it is good. We don't need to know them, because then it will be too confusing. We are, that's why Jesus said in the Bible, sufficient unto the day the evil thereof. Let us solve the problems of today. Let us not bring, nobody will gain anything by reviving the memories of the previous birth or childhood also. As the Freudian psychologists say, these are all childhood problems which are now manifesting. Why do you want to go there? Our approach is positive. The yogic approach, the Vedantic approach is positive. They say you don't have to drag all those old memories. That unbroken memory, for an incarnation, he knows. He knows what he did in his previous birth. For great people, for intuitive people who are uh, who who are connected to a Sri Ramakrishna in some unbroken way, even they may have a glimpse of the past and future, what they are going to undergo, or how they should solve a problem which they are facing right now. These are all intuitive solutions, and they will come to you, come to every one of us. We have to keep our mind and attentive and alert, and follow what Holy Mother said, the easiest and the best way to solve all the problems of life is to repeat the name of your Ishta or Sri Ramakrishna in this case in silence. So that is what she told a disciple who was initiated by her. Said, this is the best solution I am giving you as a guru. You just do it and see. But we have to remember the key words here. Easiest and the best solution. So we don't have to try for other solutions. Is to repeat. Repeat is another key word. It is not going to happen in a day. We have to go on repeating with so much faith, intent, and conviction and Shraddha. Some people are born with Shraddha. They are desperately faithful to their Guru. It is a rare thing, let me tell you, to have faith like that of Nachiketa, who had faith and who even went to the king of, the god of death, Yama himself, to understand, because he knew my ideas, the fear of death, which is one of the main fears which cause all the problems, can be solved only by Yama. But he had tremendous faith in his ability to go meet Yama, follow what he says, follow the spiritual practices, and listen to all the advices he gives and follow it to the logical conclusion. That is why he got enlightened, even a young boy. So this faith in the Guru or faith in the Avatara, who is the source of the Adi Guru, Guru Maharaj as we call, this faith is because he knows what is good for us. The incarnation knows, because they have that unbroken memory of the past, present, and future also. The Vishwarupa Darshana, which we believe in, which we read, the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is simply surprised and totally awed by the vision, how Sri Krishna showed him the past, present, and future. It is a rare thing, it doesn't happen to all. But Arjuna was lucky because he was a faithful disciple. He was, though he considered Sri Krishna to be his friend, he had tremendous faith. This Shraddha is very important. So, now coming back to the point, the question may be asked by skeptical people that does that unbroken memory of the past, present, and future, of course it is not memory, it is only of the past, exist in the Avatara right from childhood? So the question may arise that does an Avatara know when he is a child that he has to perform the divine play, or he is just born like any one of us and we have our own childhood? The Puranas, according to the Puranas, they say that these memories, though they may be latent, they may be potential in the child, they do not manifest always in the childhood. In Sri Ramakrishna's case, we will find that the samadhi and some glimpses of the faint memory of his greatness, of his power as an incarnation are exhibited. In Krishna's case, we have many stories or many myths which may be which describe his childhood life, all the great things he did even as a child, and showed many miraculous things to Yashoda. We often don't find it in all the incarnations. In Rama's case also, perhaps we do not see what he did when he was young. Of course, about his youth, we know he fought the demons when he was a student, and when he was in the Gurukula, he protected. So some exploits are seen. In different incarnations, they are different. In Buddha's case, we don't see anything. He was just a youth seeking pleasure, married, had a child, and was apparently not aware of his spiritual destiny. So it need not be the same in all cases. The greatness or the memory, unbroken memory of one's role, the divine play, may not be active. That is what Swami Shardanandji says. But as the avatar's body mind becomes mature, in Buddha's case, for example, he was not allowed to learn anything about spirituality. His father was afraid that he will become a monk or he will leave everything for a spiritual life. So to prevent it, he was given the best joy, the best facilities, and he, poor Siddhartha, of course that was a divine play, he was not even aware what spirituality is. Still he saw pain, he saw death, he saw old age, and suddenly he was exposed to, he realized that life is not so joyful as it seems. I was in the palace, I was shown only the joyful part of life. But what is this? Are these also things which I have to undergo? By hiding a thing, you don't, you cannot forget it. He saw it, and then it was suddenly uh, uh, resulted in a transformation in his life. He decided to leave to find a permanent solution. He said, these people have not told me all these things. And he was born and brought up in a luxury with so much of joy, but suddenly it came like a rude shock to see suffering outside the palace. And then he decided, I'll find a solution and I'll not rest till I find the solution. And then he found the solution. And when he reached Nirvana, he found that Nirvana is the goal, Mukti is the goal, Moksha is the goal. So the Avatara's case also, his memory awakens as he grows. Then he realizes, that is what Swami Shardanji says, and that is he's quoting from the Puranas. So every one of Avatara's actions have to be evaluated in that way. He is preparing the ground for the childhood life of Sri Ramakrishna, where we have to understand that these faculties, this latent the idea that he is born for as an incarnation and the role he has to play is unfolded slowly. Even in Swamiji's case, when Sri Ramakrishna said, you are a great person, you are a wonderful, you have 18 powers than that of Keshav, he thought, is this person a mad person? The first meeting when he said, first and second meetings, he said, you have 18 such powers. He said, what is he speaking? Keshav Chandra Sen is a great founder of a great movement. I am just a college boy and he is respecting me. He is attributing all this greatness to me. How can he know? But there was, slowly as he grows, as every human individual grows, they develop this intuitive capacity to intuitively understand. We may not, even many of us, if we take our spiritual practices sincerely, we slowly start getting intuitive understandings. I had seen some senior monks, very senior monks, who later on became gurus in our order, especially Revered Swami Atmasthanji Maharaj. He was highly intuitive in the sense when he took some decisions, logically they did not sound to be perfect solutions. Even Revered Swami Vireshwaranji Maharaj, who was the 10th president of our order, he also, if you read some of his reminiscences, you will find that many times he took some strange decisions. There were some people who came and wanted initiation. He simply refused. Something intuitively told him or gave him the reason for that. That is what happens when the past, present of a human being is suddenly exposed. And if you can intu- intuitively try to understand that, Avatara does it effortlessly. That is why he told Swami Vivekananda that you are born to teach humankind. And Naren must have laughed. What is this? I'm just a college boy, struggling, not even getting a job. My father has died. I'm not even able to support my family. And he says I can conquer the world. But he could see the Avatara assumes a human body, behaves in all respects like a human being. This person we have to understand, this part of the incarnations. Sometimes we will see he is exhibiting weaknesses as a normal human being. He is also feeling pain. He is also feeling all the problems that we face. But there is a reason for that. This is the divine Leela. And it is not always that he is aware of his, according to the Puranas, the idea that he has a divine responsibility as an avatara is not always there in that incarnation. As he grows, however, this Guru Bhav Purvardha, Guru Bhav Uttarardha, Sadhaka Bhav, the different volumes of this great master. Finally, when we come to the Divya Bhav and Narendranath, that is the period when he manifests his avatarhood, the fact that he had come to save a huge, large number of souls. He came and he became, he through his compassion, they don't come, they just come to do good to others and to free people from the meshes of Maya. So Dukkha Nivarana, Dukkha Nivrutti, that is our goal. But who will do this Dukkha Nivrutti? Is it possible for ourselves? Through self-effort, we can partially do it. Maybe the physical ailments we can get rid of. Now technology has been advanced, medical technology. We can do all sorts of investigations and solve it. But what about the others? What about the other problems? What about our causal problems? What about our mental conditions which keep on fluctuating? They are all complicated. This tapatraya or the atyantika dukkha nivrutti, dukkha is not of one type. If it were only one, then we could have solved it. If we go to solve the physical problem, we find there is some connection with the mind. The mind has to be taken care of. Then after doing both, and we feel that, oh, we are relaxed now, we are full of joy, then suddenly the causal problems start. But Avatara goes to the root. And the spiritual practices given by the Avatara, which come down in a tradition, they also address the problems at deeper levels. But the only thing we need to have is patience. These things, like all other problems. That is why they say Ayurveda takes time to cure a human being, to remove a disease. Allopathy may do it faster. But if you do use naturopathy, which is being in harmony with nature, and try to cure certain ailments and problems, physical problems, with Ayurveda, which they say according to the Indian tradition is a more traditional way of dealing. It goes deeper. It takes care of the mind. It takes care of the other aspects of human personality and deals with the three gunas in a different way. And then they say this is the solution, using all natural things that are available. Nothing synthetic is used. And that is a natural way of taking care of our physical problems. So also yoga is something, that is why Patanjali, interestingly, wrote three books. He dealt with the Sthula Sharira also. He wrote a medical treatise. People don't know this. He was the author of a medical treatise. So first he believed, and even his asanas and yama, niyama, and asana, pranayama, they are all part of that treatise. Though he speaks of mental yoga to solve the mental problems, he dealt with the physical problem. He wrote a book on that. And when he also wrote a book on the mental issues, the mental dukkha, and also gave a spiritual solution, the ultimate solution, through which we can solve our causal problems. So Patanjali's yoga and some other book which he wrote, which is also, I forgot the name, but it is equally important. Patanjali does not deal just with the mind, deals with the body also. How the nature and trying to set, uh, create some kind of harmony in the body through natural means. Of course, medical technology, if that's an urgent thing, then medical technology is also useful. Sometimes we may have to do it, but most of the time it is a natural process that we should adopt. And that is what Holy Mother means when she says the easiest and the best way is to repeat the name of Sri Ram Krishna or your Ishta in silence. So that, so much for uh, the sadhana according to Sri Ram Krishna. And we will continue this discussion. If there are some questions, we will try to take it. I don't want to rush through this book. I just want to take one paragraph each class, though it will take several years to complete, maybe at least a year or two. But I don't want to rush because this is a very important book. Unless we know Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam, unless we know the divine play, it will not benefit us if we just repeat Sri Ram Krishna's name. Many of you are maybe initiated, many may not be initiated, or even have Shraddha for Sri Ramakrishna, or any incarnation or spirituality in general, Vedanta. But nothing will avail if one does not understand, if one does not clear the doubts, and after clearing the doubts goes into silence, Shravana, Manana, and then Nididhyasana. Shravana means first hear, Manana means think about it. Just don't go on round and round. Just think the bare minimum. Don't confuse. And then, or seek guidance if there is confusion. And finally go and sit in a place and try to internalize those ideas, those great ideas of different prophets and incarnations. And try to intuitively realize or experience those truths in the heart, which can be done in silence and silence alone. So I'll take your leave, but before that, let us see if there are any questions you can ask in the chat. Oh, somebody has asked if there is a class tomorrow. We will have, why not? Is there any reason why we should not have? We have a class tomorrow as well. Tomorrow is Friday. So we have our Raj Yoga class. In fact, I was thinking, oh, no. Yes, I said it was the last class, last Great Master class. I did not specify. This is the last Great Master class of this year. But we will have Raj Yoga 31st. We will have. And Raj Yoga, I was thinking, but this year we will have it at 5:30 as usual. But from next year, that is the new year, we might postpone the Friday class to 7 p.m. as we do in case of the Tuesday and Thursday class, so that people who go, those who go to work, those who don't work from home, they may get a chance. Even those who work from home, they are comparatively more free to attend the class at 7. But unfortunately, for people who attend these classes from India, from America, it is fine. USA, the time is okay. But these weekly classes may be a bit difficult. It will be well past midnight. But then they can watch these classes on YouTube, in our YouTube channel. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you will get, as soon as some talks are posted, it will immediately, they will intimate you, a notification you will get that this class has been uploaded. Now, thanks to some devotees and volunteers, we have been able to upload all the classes of 2020, which we had recorded, but we had not uploaded on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. So suddenly you will find a flood of YouTube videos which have been uploaded, though the quality is not so good. They were all on Facebook Live, but still you can hear the audio perfectly well. The video is also good. And 2019, a few classes we had recorded. Especially in those days, we had only Saturday and Sunday classes. Sunday classes, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and Saturday class, I used to go to London, and it was on Upanishads and various topics. So you'll find those classes which we started in 2019, some of them which were recorded on YouTube as well. We plan to, whatever we have, whether it is Facebook Live, we download it and upload it on YouTube so you can go through it. Now, there is one question which I'll answer. One question is, will you talk on Kalpataru Day, please? Yes, Kalpataru, we will be talking on this particular day, but I think it would be a good idea. I'll let you know. It will be at 7. This seems to be the most convenient time for most people. But if it is on Saturday, Sunday, we may even stick to the schedule 5:30 so that some of the Indians can get the benefit. Even though 5:30 is quite late, but because it is Saturday and Sunday, it is possible to do these 2 classes early. So Kalpataru Day is coming on Sunday, I believe. I don't know, for January 1st, it is a Saturday. So we will have as usual. Saturday, Sunday, I don't want to change the time. Acha. Now there is another question. Why do Hindus today not worship their Gotra or Adi Gurus? Because first of all, they don't know what a Gotra is. And moreover, it is not very important. I just gave you an example that everybody can trace his lineage. For example, a European gentleman, he will say, I belong to the lineage of such and such an emperor, but somehow now I am in this condition. I am not in the royal family anymore, because slowly the Gotras have become diluted. And people, even if they remember, they don't have the characteristics of the Adi Guru who started their Gotra, the Rishi who was in the Vedas, the Vedic Rishi. It is from the Vedic Rishis we trace our ancestry. So it may not be possible, or even if it is possible, it may not benefit us a lot because we do not know anything about these Rishis. Whereas the incarnations who have come as a substitute. So our Gotra, for all practical purposes, we trace our ancestry to Sri Ramakrishna himself. He is the Adi Guru for us. So it may not be possible since we cannot trace, and even if we trace, we do not know the traditions of that Gotra. Now it is just a formality. Only when you use it, some Hindus use it, only when you have certain ceremonies like marriage and other things. They ask which Gotra you belong to. It hardly matters. People don't even, belonging to a good Gotra doesn't make a person good. So it is not so important, but I just gave you the historic concept of how concept of Avtara developed from this concept of Gotra. Now we trace our ancestry to an Avtara, that is fine. Christians may say that Christ is the Avtara, or if they believe in the fact that he was an Avatara, then they can trace their ancestry to Jesus Christ himself, not to any order to which they belong. They may belong to any order, which there are so many Christian orders, the Anglicans, the Protestants, the Roman Catholics, and even Syrian Christians, and there are so many hundreds of sects. So we can't possibly go to the root of all those. It's better to just go back to Jesus. As Swamiji said, if you are Christians, whatever be your denomination, go back to Christ. So also we trace our Gotra, whoever is our Guru or Rishi, we go back to the Vedas. We go back to Sri Ramakrishna, who interpreted the Vedas for us and who is our Adi Guru, the Guru Maharaj. Okay. So I think there are no more questions. So I will take your leave, and we'll meet tomorrow for our Raj Yoga class. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.